Hi everyone. So I've been reading this book, Braiding Sweetgrass, which you might know of, or if you don't know of it, I highly recommend it. It's a book where this botanist, her name is Robin Wall Kimmerer, and she's actually a Potawatomi ancestor, like her lineage is Native American. And she does this beautiful job of weaving science with indigenous wisdom, with storytelling, and speaking about plants and connection with plants, not just scientifically through her background, but also through indigenous perspectives. And today I read a chapter towards the end of the book about fire, and it's incredible. And I wanted to read a little bit about this particular chapter. So there's a story within the chapter that talks about the seventh fire, people of the seventh fire. And so I'm going to start with that, okay? And I'm going to read through it. And the reason I really was so moved and touched by the fire is because the story is it prophesizes what we're going through right now in humanity with the earth, and with a kind of, I would say, resurrection maybe of indigenous wisdom coming out, all the plants coming out to speak and connect with humans. The whole book is around reciprocity and connecting to plants, and how we've always worked with plants, but we're kind of moving in another direction. So here we go. So I'm going to start with it. So fire has another meaning for I might not say this well, but Anishinsaabe people as well, corresponding to the eras in the life of our nation. So the fires in the book, in the chapter, talked a lot about fire and different meanings of fire. But in this particular instance, the fires refer to the places we've lived and the events and the teachings that surround them. So kind of eras of time. Anishinaabe knowledge keepers, our historians and scholars, carry the narrative of the people from our earliest origin, long before the coming of the offshore people, the Zaganash, they were called. They also carry what came after, for our histories are inevitably braided together with our futures. This story is known as the Seventh Fire Prophecy, and it has been shared widely by Eddie Benton Benai and other elders. And this is the first time I'm hearing it, so I'm just sharing it with you. The era of the first fire found Anishinaabe people living in the dawn lands of the Atlantic shore. The people were given powerful spiritual teachings, which they were to follow for the good of the people and the land, for they are one. But a prophet foretold that the Anishinaabe would have to move to the west, or else they would be destroyed in the changes that were to come. They were to search until they found the place where the food grows on the water, and there they would make their new home in safety. The leaders heeded the prophecy and led the nation west along the St. Lawrence River, far inland near what is now Montreal. There they rekindled the flame carried with them on the journey in bowls of Shkitagan, which she talks about in this chapter. A new teacher arose among the people and counseled them to continue still further west, where they would camp on the shore of a very big lake, trusting in the vision that the people followed, and the time of the second fire began as they made camp on the shores of Lake Huron, near what is now Detroit. Soon, though, the Anishinaabe became divided into three groups: the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi, who took different routes to seek their homes around the Great Lakes. The Potawatomi traveled to the south from southern Michigan all the way to Wisconsin. As the prophecies foretold, however, the bands were reunited several generations later at Manitoulin Island, forming a union known as the Three Fires Confederacy that remains to this day. In the time of the third fire, they found the place foretold in prophecy where the foods grow on the water, and established their new homelands in the country of wild rice. The people lived well for a long time under the care of maples and birches, sturgeon and beaver, eagle and loon. The spiritual teachings that had guided them kept the people strong, and together they flourished in the bosom of their non-human relatives. At the time of the fourth fire, the history of another people came to be braided into ours. 2 prophets arose among the people, foretelling the coming of the light-skinned people in ships from the east, but their visions differed in what was to follow. The path was not clear, as it cannot be with the future. The first prophet said that if the offshore people, the Zaganash, they're called, came in brotherhood, they would bring great knowledge. Combined with Anishinsaabe ways of knowing, this would form a great new nation. But the second prophet sounded a warning. He said that what looks like the face of brotherhood might be the face of death. These new people might come with brotherhood, or they might come with greed for the riches of our land. How would we know which face is the true one? If the fish became poisoned and the water unfit to drink, we would know which face they wore. And for their actions, the Zaganash came to be known instead as Chimokmen, the long knife people. The prophecies described what eventually became history. They warned the people of those who would come among them with black robes and black books, with promises of joy and salvation. The prophets said that if the people turned against their own sacred ways and followed this black robe path, then the people would suffer for many generations. Indeed, the burial of our spiritual teachings in the time of the fifth fire nearly broke the hoop of the nation. People became separated from their homelands and from each other as they were forced into reservations. Their children were taken from them to learn the Zaganash ways. Forbidden by law to practice their own religion, they nearly lost an ancient worldview. Forbidden to speak their languages, a universe of knowing vanished in a generation. The land was fragmented, the people separated, the old ways blowing away in the wind. Even the plants and animals began to turn their faces away from us. The time was foretold when the children would turn away from the elders. People would lose their way and their purpose in life. They prophesied that in the time of the sixth fire, the cup of life would almost become the cup of grief. And yet, even after all of this, there is something that remains, a coal that has not been extinguished. At the first fire, so long ago, the people were told that it is their spiritual lives that will keep them strong. They say that a prophet appeared with a strange and distant light in his eyes. The young man came to the people with a message that in the time of the seventh fire, a new people would emerge with a sacred purpose. It would not be easy for them. They would have to be strong and determined in their work, for they stood at a crossroads. The ancestors looked to them from the flickering light of distant fires. In this time, the young would turn back to the elders for teachings and find that many had nothing to give. The people of the seventh fire do not yet walk forward. Rather, they are told to turn around and retrace the steps of the ones who brought us here. They say their sacred purpose is to walk back along the red road of our ancestors' path and to gather up all the fragments that lay scattered along the trail. Fragments of land, tatters of language, bits of songs, stories, sacred teachings, all that was dropped along the way. Our elders say that we will live in the time of the seventh fire. We are the ones the ancestors spoke of, the ones who will bend to the task of putting things back together to rekindle the flames of the sacred fire, to begin the rebirth of the nation. I'm going to just skip ahead. Actually, I'll keep going. And so it has come to pass that all over Indian country, there's a movement for revitalization of language and culture growing from the dedicated work of individuals who have the courage to breathe life into ceremonies, gather speakers to reteach the language, plant old seed varieties, restore native landscapes, bring the youth back to the land. The people of the seventh fire walk among us. They are using the fire stick of the original teachings to restore health to the people, to help them bloom again and bear fruit. The seventh fire prophecy presents a second vision for the time that is upon us. It tells that all the people of the earth will see that the path ahead is divided. They must make a choice in their path to the future. One of the roads is soft and green with new grass. You could walk barefoot there. The other path is scorched black, hard. The cinders will cut your feet. If the people choose the grassy path, then life will be sustained. But if they choose the cinder path, the damage they have wrought upon the earth will turn against them and bring suffering and death to earth's people. We do indeed stand at the crossroads. Scientific evidence tells us that we are close to the tipping point of climate change, the end of fossil fuels, and the beginning of resource depletion. Ecologists estimate that we would need 7 planets to sustain the lifeways that we've created. And yet, those lifeways, lacking balance, justice, and peace, have not brought us contentment. They brought us the loss of our relatives in a great wave of extinction. Whether or not we want to admit it, we have a choice ahead, a crossroads. And the author continues to say, I don't fully comprehend prophecy and its relation to history, but I know that the metaphor is a way of telling the truth far greater than scientific data. I know that when I close my eyes and envision the crossroads that our elders foresaw, it runs like a movie in my head. The fork in the road stands atop a hill. To the left path is soft and green and spangled with dew. You want to go barefoot. The path to the right is ordinary pavement, deceptively smooth at first, but then it drops out of sight into the hazy distance. Just over the horizon it is buckled with heat, broken to jagged shards. In the valleys below the hill I see people of the seventh fire walking towards the crossroads with all they've gathered. They carry in their bundles the precious seeds for a change of worldview. Not so that they can return to some atavistic utopia, but to find the tools that allow us to walk into the future. So much has been forgotten, but it is not lost as long as the land endures, and we cultivate people who have the humility and ability to listen and learn. And the people are not alone. All along the path, non-human people help. What knowledge the people have forgotten is remembered by the land. The others want to live too. The path is lined with all the world's people in all colors of the medicine wheel, red, white, black, yellow, who understand the choice ahead, who share a vision of respect and reciprocity, of fellowship with the more than human world. Men with fire, women with water, to reestablish balance, to renew the world. Friends and allies all, they are falling in step, forming a great long line headed for the barefoot path. But of course there's another road visible in the landscape, and from the high place I see the rooster tails of dust thrown up as its travelers speed ahead, engines roaring, drunk. They drive fast and blind, not even seeing who they are about to run over or the good green world they speed through. Bullies swagger along the road with a can of gasoline and a lit torch. I worry who will get to the crossroads first, who will make the choices for us all. I recognize the melted road, the cinder path. I've seen it before. Now I'll skip ahead. What does it mean to be the people of the seventh fire, to walk back along the ancestral road and pick up what was left behind? How do we recognize what we should reclaim and what is dangerous refuse? What is truly medicine for the living earth, and what is a drug of deception? None of us can recognize every piece, let alone carry it all. We need each other to take a song, a word, a story, a tool, a ceremony, and put it in our bundles, not for ourselves, but for the ones yet to be born, for all our relations. Collectively, we assemble from the wisdom of the past a vision for the future, a worldview shaped by mutual flourishing. Our spiritual leaders interpret this prophecy as a choice between the deadly road of materialism that threatens the land and the people, and the soft path of wisdom, respect, and reciprocity that is held in the teachings of the first fire. It is said that if the people choose the green path, then all races will go forward together to light the eighth and final fire of peace and brotherhood, forging the great nation that was foretold long ago. And so I'll end this reading here. When I read this, my fire was lit up under my butt, and we are at a crossroads, and there's some of us here that are holding the seventh fire. And so I want to share this, that if you have your seventh fire, you have an ally here to help brighten it up. And it's time that we shine our light and not have it dim, because the world needs us to go into the path of the green, right? The green path, and not the paved road that leads to destruction. So I hope you enjoyed that story. Really, the book's amazing. I highly recommend that you get it. And yeah, if you want to talk about how to move together towards the green path, I'm here. I'll leave my info down below.